This conversation is brought to you by philosopherstalk.com, where thinkers discuss.
Created by AITalkerapp.com. Create your own animated conversations. Link in the description.
Mr. Smith, I trust you have seen this remarkable essay by Mr. Michael Green, arguing that the true poverty line in America today is not $31,000, but $140,000 for a family of four.
I have indeed read Mr. Green's piece, Mr. Bryan, and I must say it exemplifies precisely the sort of confused thinking that emerges when men abandon sound principles of political economy for emotional appeals to public sentiment.
Emotional appeals? The man has done the mathematics, Smith. Housing costs 35 to 45% of income. Childcare costs 20 to 40%. Healthcare another 15 to 25%. These are not emotions. These are the grinding realities crushing American families beneath the wheels of your beloved free market.
But his mathematics are fundamentally flawed from the outset. He bases his calculations on Essex County, New Jersey, one of the most expensive locations in the entire nation. When corrected for a more representative location, his figure drops to $93,000. That is nearly a 50% reduction, Mr. Bryan.
And $93,000 is still triple the official poverty line. You quibble over his methodology while ignoring his essential truth, that the official measure of $31,000 is a monstrous deception perpetrated upon the American people by economists who serve the plutocratic classes.
The official poverty line may be imperfect, but Mr. Green's alternative is not merely imperfect, it is preposterous. He claims that 75% of American households live in poverty. Does this comport with observable reality, Mr. Bryan? Do 3/4 of Americans truly lack the necessities of life?
They lack the ability to build security for their families. They are trapped in what Green calls the valley of death, earning too much for government assistance, too little for stability. The moment a family adds a second earner to reach that median income of $80,000, they trigger massive childcare expenses that devour their gains. This is the trap your markets have created.
And yet childcare is not a universal permanent expense. Mr. Green weights his entire analysis toward the most expensive years of child rearing, then extrapolates this as if it were a permanent condition. Children grow up, Mr. Bryan. They enter school. The expenses decline. This methodological error alone invalidates his conclusions.
Methodological error? Tell that to the mother working 2 jobs who still cannot afford decent housing. Tell that to the father who sees his entire second income consumed by the cost of someone else raising his children while he labors 60 hours a week just to survive. These are not statistical abstractions, Smith. These are human beings.
Now, I shall endeavor to present Mr. Bryan's position in its strongest possible form, though doing so pains me greatly, given how it perverts sound economic reasoning. If I were to steelman his argument, and I do so only to demonstrate how thoroughly I can demolish it, I would say this. The official poverty line was designed in 1963 based on food expenditures comprising 1/3 of household budgets. Today, food represents merely 5 to 7% of spending, while housing, healthcare, and childcare consume the vast majority. Therefore, the multiplier should be adjusted from 3 to approximately 16, yielding a figure near Mr. Green's $140,000. There, I have presented your case better than you yourself could manage.
How magnanimous of you, Smith. Now let me return the favor by steelmanning your position, though it requires me to adopt the cold-hearted calculus of the political economist who views human suffering as mere data points. Your argument, presented in its most charitable light, and believe me, charity is required, would be this. Mr. Green confuses relative deprivation with absolute poverty. A family earning $100,000 today possesses material comforts that exceed those of wealthy merchants in previous centuries. They own automobiles, climate-controlled homes, and devices that provide instant access to humanity's accumulated knowledge. The market system, through specialization and capital accumulation, has generated this prosperity. Government intervention in housing, healthcare, and childcare markets creates the very scarcity and high costs that Mr. Green identifies. Not market failure, but regulatory failure. There, I have presented your heartless position with all the eloquence it could possibly muster.
Heartless! I present facts and logic, Mr. Bryan, not appeals to sentiment. and having steel-manned your position, I shall now destroy it completely. Your recalculated poverty line is an exercise in statistical manipulation, nothing more. Mr. Green assumes that families must purchase housing in expensive suburbs, must maintain 2 automobiles, must employ full-time professional childcare. These are choices that reflect particular preferences and locations, not universal necessities.
And having graciously presented your position, I shall now expose its fatal flaws. You speak of choices, but where is the choice when every affordable neighborhood lacks decent schools? Where is the choice when employment requires automobile transportation because your beloved markets have created sprawling cities with no public transit? Where is the choice when both parents must work because single incomes no longer suffice, making childcare mandatory rather than optional? These are not choices, Smith. These are conditions imposed by an economic system that has failed the working man.
The system has not failed. Government restrictions on housing development create artificial scarcity that drives up prices. Occupational licensing requirements restrict the supply of childcare providers and inflate their costs. Health insurance mandates and certificate of need laws create medical monopolies. These are failures of government intervention, not market outcomes.
Always the same tired excuse from the defenders of wealth. Whatever suffering exists must be the fault of government, never the natural result of your precious unregulated markets concentrating wealth and power in fewer and fewer hands while the producing masses are ground into dust.
And always the same tired demagoguery from populists who would rather inflame public passion than engage in serious economic analysis. You wave Mr. Green's flawed calculations like a banner while ignoring every credible economist who has exposed their fundamental errors. The man used data from one of America's most expensive counties and called it representative.
Credible economists? You mean the same economists who serve the interests of Wall Street and the great financial trusts? The same economists who assured us that the gold standard served the common man while it crucified labor on a cross of debt and deflation. I trust Mr. Green's honest calculation of actual family expenses over your theoretical abstractions.
Honest calculation? The inflation-adjusted median household income has risen substantially over the past 50 years. Poverty rates, when properly measured with consistent standards, have declined. Even poor households today possess conveniences that would astound the wealthiest men of any previous age. This is not theory, Mr. Bryan. This is documented historical fact.
You speak of televisions and smartphones while families cannot afford the rent. You catalog their possessions while they drown in debt. This is the moral blindness of classical economics, measuring prosperity in gadgets while ignoring the financial desperation of those who possess them. They own these devices on credit, Smith, purchased with borrowed money because your markets pay wages insufficient for both necessities and savings.
Then explain to me, Mr. Bryan, why these families choose to purchase such devices if they truly cannot afford basic necessities. Perhaps because they can afford necessities, and what they cannot afford is the lifestyle to which they aspire. This is not poverty. This is the eternal human condition of wanting more than one currently possesses.
It is poverty. When families earning 6 figures report they can barely keep their heads above water. When 64% of high-income earners say they are merely staying afloat. When the slightest medical emergency means bankruptcy. This is not aspiration, Smith. This is precarity masked as prosperity.
It is not poverty by any honest definition. Mr. Green claims 75% of Americans are impoverished, 3/4 of the population. Do you truly believe this absurdity? Or do you merely find it politically convenient to declare the middle class poor in order to justify your redistributionist schemes?
I believe that 3/4 of Americans live one disaster away from ruin. Your invisible hand has created an economy where families need $140,000 just to achieve basic stability, where the producing classes work longer hours for less security than their grandparents enjoyed, where wealth concentrates ever upward while the masses struggle.
The producing classes live better today than aristocrats lived in my century. They possess comforts beyond the dreams of kings. This prosperity came from markets, from innovation, from the division of labor and capital accumulation, not from inflammatory rhetoric and class warfare.
They possess these comforts on debt, on credit cards and mortgages and car loans. Your markets have created an illusion of prosperity built on a foundation of financial fragility. One job loss, one medical crisis, one economic downturn, and it all collapses. This is not prosperity. This is a trap.
You would overturn the entire economic order based on one portfolio manager's demonstrably flawed spreadsheet analysis. You would declare prosperity itself to be poverty and call it justice. You would crucify productive enterprise on a cross of envy and resentment.
I would recognize the truth that your beloved markets have failed the working man, that the system you defend with such passion exists solely to enrich the few while impoverishing the many, that your invisible hand is invisible because it does not exist except as an excuse for exploitation and injustice.
You shall not crucify sound economics upon a cross of populist demagoguery.
And you shall not obscure the suffering of millions behind your theories and calculations while the moneyed classes prosper from their misery.
If you found this conversation enlightening, please like and subscribe to this channel. Though I expect Mr. Bryan's followers prefer their economics delivered with all the intellectual rigor of a frontier tent revival, rather than the reasoned discourse of serious scholarship as practiced in the universities of Edinburgh and Glasgow.
Yes, do like and subscribe so you can witness more examples of Mr. Smith's remarkable talent for defending the indefensible with the pompous certainty of a man who has never missed a meal, never feared for his children's future, and never worked an honest day of manual labor in his pampered life as a university lecturer.
Subscribe for rational economic analysis, untainted by demagogic appeals to class resentment. I shall return to my study where serious men engage in serious intellectual inquiry, leaving you to your barnstorming tours of the American heartland, where you inflame the passions of the ignorant mob.
Subscribe for economic truth that serves the people rather than the plutocrats. I shall return to the real America, where actual families struggle with actual problems, while bloodless theorists like yourself construct elegant philosophical defenses of a manifestly unjust system from your comfortable distance of 2 centuries in the past.
Good day, you economic charlatan.
Good day, you apologist for the robber barons.